Wake up in the morning, get my grind on. Hop in the shower, brush my teeth and get my shine on. Hey, Scholar Mac, we taking trips to different time zones. I feel like E.T. way these bitches trying to follow home. Wake up in the morning, get my grind on. Hop in the shower, brush my teeth.
Welcome everybody to Living on Purpose podcast. We're your host, James Hagler, and myself, Jason Wilson. Today, our guest is Jason Holzer. He's the owner of 4D Athletes. Welcome, Jason.
Hey, how's it going, Jason? Thank you all for having me today.
You're welcome.
Likewise.
So, Jason, man, fill us in on everything about your perspective on this Super Bowl. What do you think is going to happen?
Oh, man. That's a good question. I think, the way as clutch as Cincinnati's kicker's been, it's going to come down to a McPherson field goal. He's going to nail about a 40-yarder, and the Bengals are going to win by 3. That's kind of been their mojo. Like every game, they've won by 3 and a field goal in the end. So
yeah,
I feel like that's going to happen. Keep the trend going. So I say 30-27 Bengals.
Okay.
See, that's what I was telling Mike Hollis the other day. We was talking to him, and I said it's going to come down to those kickers, man. You know what I mean? And that kicker has been doing it for the Bengals, and I really think it's going to come down to that too. I'm saying the same thing you're saying. It's going to come down to the kickers because all during the playoff, the kickers was winning the games.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And I hope so because I hope it ought to make a great game. Keep you on the edge of your seat.
Well, and I think the reason why the Chiefs didn't make the Super Bowl didn't use their kicker at the end of the first half. They got greedy at the end there.
Right.
So,
I didn't know what happened to the Chiefs. They just seemed like they just gave up. Like, okay, they was already into next year.
Yeah, I mean, I think the lesson there was like, you take what's given to you, right? Like, don't get greedy. Take the points.
That's right.
Because you never know when you might need them. I think that was kind of the life lesson that I got from that is like, hey, you know what? When take what's given to you, because when you try to do too much, try to go for too much, then it kind of ends up backfiring a lot of times.
Well, no doubt, and a lot of coaches, you see a lot of teams, doing crazy stuff that they wouldn't do like back in the '90s and early '90s. They going for it on this down. They're not going for the kicking points. They're doing it. They're really gambling this time around. I see a lot of teams gambling and rolling the dice to see what they can come up with because some of them teams are successful doing that, and I kind of like that. It makes me feel like I'm playing Madden or something.
Yeah.
Because when you play Madden, you go all 4 downs.
That's right. Well, I think it's calculated risk too, right? Sometimes if it's like 4th and 1, 4th and inches, I mean the percentage is like, hey, why? And if you're on the other side of the 50 too, right. I mean. I think it makes more sense to. But if you're like on your 15 or 20, like the Chargers did at one time, and they went for it, didn't get it, I was like, huh.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So we like to delve into people's career paths. So when you were a child, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Man, I wanted to play professional baseball for the St. Louis Cardinals. That was my dream whenever I was a kid. Yep. Obviously, I didn't make it there, but that was.
How close did you get?
No, not. I didn't even play. I stopped playing baseball probably in high school. So this was like whenever I was 7, 8 years old. I was pretty fast. So as a kid, I was the leadoff kid. I was like, imagine myself being Ozzie Smith. Back in whenever the Wizard was playing, and I would always play up whenever I was playing with 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, and then
that's how you get good.
Whenever I was 12, I went through a pretty significant bullying situation that really wrecked my self-image. I was like really nervous about putting myself out there. I just didn't want to be noticed. I'd rather like not be noticed as opposed to like try to go out there and prove. So right. I just tried to, it was a point where I just didn't where I didn't want people to even say anything to me because I was nervous about them saying something about me that would wreck my self-image, that would, make me not feel confident in myself. And so, that really kind of shifted like how much I my confidence in sports and in life for those tough years between 10 to 15, 16 when you're trying to figure out who you are. And I was at the point where I'd rather just not get noticed as opposed to trying my hardest and trying to overcome that stuff at that time.
But I think we all been through something like that. I know I've been through it, and with my family, especially with my dad being a fighter. Sometimes you used to always say, look, don't worry about what the crowd's doing. Don't worry about what anybody says. Just go out there and do it and give it your best. And don't worry about it. Don't doubt yourself, because as soon as you doubt yourself, that's where the problems come in. That's where you have those problems. You have problems that you never even had before, and you're trying to wonder why this is happening. You just can't doubt yourself. Once you know it, you gotta. That's it. That, because that's part of your confidence. Like one thing in boxing, and Oscar De La Hoya is one of them. I liked what he said. He said as long as he was in great shape, that was his confidence. Because in boxing, it will come down to, you can have the best skills in the world, but if you're not in shape, you're not going to do nothing.
Yeah.
And that's got to be a confidence. Like my dad always said, he said, you know what, I don't mind getting beat by somebody that's better than me, but I'm not going to go out there and beat myself. I'm going to make sure I'm in a top shape. So that way I'm able to give it all. There's no excuses. That the guy, if I lose, he was just better than me. You know what I'm saying? So, I kind of understand where you're coming from when you said you had some of those dilemmas in high school, especially in high school, because like you say, you're just trying to find out who you are.
Yeah.
And those bullies can be dream killers. They'll shift you in a different direction. And then when you find out as you get older, you're like, damn, you know what? I need to go back to the past real quick. Straighten this dude out.
Yeah, that's and not saying that I would be a professional athlete, because I'm not, but I will say, like, whenever you're 12 years old and you're not sure, like, man, like you feel nervous about going to school the next day because you're nervous about facing those situations. And I went to a super small school too. There's only 20 kids in my class, right? So there was only like so many places that I was going into every day. And this was, mid to late 90s, where there wasn't even social media yet. There wasn't even any of that yet. There wasn't, but it was something where, when you're that young and you didn't have that very many resources, or you feel like you couldn't talk to somebody, you feel like you just had to like toughen up and figure it out yourself. That's where I think I went wrong. And that's why we started 40 Athletes was a big thing, was like giving teenagers and kids a way to develop their life skills, develop their confidence, believe in themselves, regardless of what other people think. And so a lot of what we did for 40 Athletes was be a resource that I didn't have whenever I was, those ages. So you could work through that stuff, and you could like trust who you are and learn about who you are, and not and drown out the outside noise. Because as soon as you can do that, as you know, James and Jason, the more your confidence you're going to be, the more you get on your path in life, and you don't really worry about what other people think.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, you can't worry about what other people think. You really can't. I learned that the hard way, because I used to always worry about what somebody was thinking of me, and then I got into trouble doing that too. You know what I'm saying? Well, I gotta be this type of way. I gotta be that way. Well, they're gonna say this if I'm not this, and it really takes from you who you really are.
Absolutely.
And that can even go in from like, what your parents think you're supposed to do, or what your family thinks you're supposed to do. Yeah. It's not just maybe your peers, it's also the pressure you might feel from somebody else too, of like, man, I really think I should be doing this, but all my family are doctors, so I guess I'm a doctor too. I think it's, for us, it's like, hey, use sports to find out who you are, not just like what you should do, because sports is something you do that can help build those characteristics to help you win the game of life. And when you learn about who you are as a person, that you're more than just what you do, then you can shift in anything. It doesn't really matter, right? Because you have a strong confidence and belief in yourself that you can do it.
No doubt. And that's one of the things that I loved about my father, because he was. I mean, all right, you got traditional stuff. Yeah, some traditions work, and some of them don't. So you just have to do what works for yourself. If that's making you happy and you feel good about it, and you good at it, then do that. Forget about traditional ways, because traditional ways don't always work. Mm-hmm. And I see a lot of people nowadays, even 10 years ago, 20 years ago, a lot of people shifting that way, you know, especially in households where, like you say, well, you got to be a doctor. Everybody's a doctor. Well, this kid he doesn't want to be a doctor. He wants to be a scientist. You know, what's wrong with that? You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
you know, you have to follow your dreams, man.
Yeah. My goal for my kids is I have the 3 H's for my kids. Are you happy? Are you healthy? Are you helpful? And if you have those 3 things, then everything else will fall into place, right? You know, because
I agree.
happy, that means you're in a you know, you're in a positive state of mind. If you're
Right.
healthy, that means your body can do the things you need it to do. Your mind can work professionally. And if you're helpful, that means you're trying to make the world a better place. So whatever that looks like, I'll let God take care of that. But I'm not, you know, somebody's going to try to tell my kid like, hey, man, in this family, this is what we do, as
Right.
opposed to try your best, you know, be kind to others, be respectful. Those like basic things that have been timeless from, you know, the start of mankind. Other than that, it doesn't really matter to me.
No doubt, you're right, and you're so right because my dad wanted none of us to be a fighter. He said, because I wanted to be the fighter. He was like, "Why you want to be a fighter? We need some football players or some baseball players. I've already got that locked down. You guys do something else, man." He was serious about that too. Do something else, go to be a lawyer or something. You know, we need something else like that in the family. So it was very interesting growing up under him, man.
But Jason, I think that's phenomenal, man, that you teach your kids these kinds of values in the early. You know, I had a conversation with James recently that, you know, the parents back in the 60s and the 70s and 80s, you know, we just didn't have emotional intelligence at all, you know, in dealing with kids. But now, you know, we have so much more information that we can give to our children. And, you know, I'm so interested to see what my kid is going to be like in the next, let's say 10, 20 years. He should be light years ahead of us, right, James?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you know, when it comes to emotional intelligence and, you know, emotional situations that we've dealt with, Jason, have you had any mental health issues that you've dealt with along the way?
Yeah, man. You know, another part of my story is whenever I was 17, I lost my dad to suicide, you know, and so trying to, and that's again part of my story as well. I've written a book about it, sharing like my story from like when you read it, it's a firsthand experience of like what a 17-year-old is feeling, going through in those moments, like right shortly afterwards, a year later, and then even like 17 years later, as I in my mid 30s now, about almost close to 20 years removed from him passing in 2003. You know, and turning your pain into your purpose, right? And so I was like, I got really curious about like, why do people take their own lives? Like, what's going on in their minds? Like, how does our minds work? Like, what don't we understand about this most powerful mechanism in the world? Like, is our mind. But many of us don't know how to train it. We don't know like what it's doing to us on a regular day basis. And how powerful our thoughts are, right? You know, I think I've heard one time that a negative thought is about 10 times more powerful than a positive thought. You know, and if you say it out loud, then it makes it 40 to 70 times even more powerful. And we take that for granted and we don't realize what it's doing to us, how powerful what we say out loud is. And so for myself, I've been really conscious about, number one, forgiving my dad because he didn't know any better, right? He was in a place that he just couldn't get out of. And I've learned that, you know, a lot of times people that take their own life, they think they're doing a family a favor because they're in such a tough place that they think like, oh, they're probably better off without me. You know, so I've done a lot of deep work in forgiveness to be able to talk about it, to be able to share my story with that, because I think it's important for us, especially like coming as we start to come out of this pandemic, which I believe we're really close to, you know, it turning around. There's going to be a ripple effect that's going to, you know, take a lot of healing from these last 2 years, because a lot of people are nervous, they're afraid, they're anxious. Some might even be depressed because of all the isolation, you know, because we as humans, we're not meant to be isolated. We're meant to be as a, you know, a cohesive unit, a group of people. We thrive on community, and that's been taken away, you know. So I guess I'm putting my bootstraps on, getting ready for the aftershocks of this earthquake, for lack of a better term, because I think that's where we're going to start seeing some of the mental health pieces like really start to show in these next 3 to 5 years. And what are we doing to get ahead of that? And that's again why we're doing 40 athletes, is to get people to understand, like, hey, this is who we are. This is what you can do. Here's some strategies to help you get through whenever you're feeling like this, or here's how to stay positive. Here's how to, make great decisions, right? Eating healthy, you name it, whatever it is. But they're going to be more essential than ever.
Absolutely. So Jason, at what age do you start with the kids?
I start with my 5-year-old right now. Even my 2 and 3-year-old, I'm talking to them like I'm watching my tone of voice. Now, I'm not perfect by any means. Obviously, like, kids they can have their own trigger moments with you as an adult, right? That's why we actually have a parent coach to help us figure out how to develop these kids. But with our 40 athletes program, we're starting like 7 years old, and we're teaching things like patience. We're teaching things like joy, definition of success. Like, what does it mean to be successful? And it's simply just to give your best with what you know how to do, right? That's
exactly.
What's the difference between a fixed and a growth mindset? How do you see failure? Do you see it as feedback, or, as something that you can get better from, or do you see it as final? Like, hey, I'm never going to get better. And so we got to fix some of those thought systems to help them see it as a growth mindset. Hey, like, this is just helping me become the best version of myself. And if I fail, I get up and I try again.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly right. It's like riding a bike.
Yeah.
You fall down, you get back up. Once you know how to ride that bike, that's it. You never forget.
and all these things can be trained too. The more that you fail and the more that you overcome it, the more you get used to, like, oh, that's okay, no big deal. It'll be fine. It'll be all good. But the more, again, you like think failure is final. Oh, I'll only be good at this thing or whatever. That also gets trained. So no matter what, we're always training something. So for us, it's like, let's train these things when their minds are moldable, whenever they're young, whenever they have the influence of their parents that can help them develop these positive mindsets so they can become the best version of themselves.
That's right. And parents have a lot of influence over kids. They might not think so, but it's very true.
And I think I heard that, up until age 10 years old, like, the same-sex parents is the most influential person in the kid's life to like 10. So you got a decade to really lay a strong foundation as a parent.
That's right.
Yeah.
And which means dealing with some of your own stuff that you don't even realize, like some of the things that maybe so it doesn't get carried on. And that's what I've really tried to work on myself, is like, what are my weaknesses, or what are the things that I get triggered on? Oh man, I need to take a deep dive. Like, why is that? And just being really self-aware. I think that's the best thing you can do as a parent, is be very self-aware. So that way, I mean, you're never going to be perfect, but the less you have to pass on of the bad stuff that you have within you, which we all have it,
Right.
the more your kid can thrive and be a better version of themselves,
Yep.
Right.
Definitely.
And then Jason, to find the kids for your programs, do you have like a collaboration with schools, or how does it work?
Yeah, a lot of times we will work with like youth sports organizations, right? Even schools, coaches, athletic administrators, people that are like-minded, people that see this as a value, and more people are seeing this as kids need it, as they realize seeing some of the behaviors, some of the inconsistencies they have. So, really working with like those youth clubs, and even school programs too. Yeah, is our main people that we like to work with.
Okay, and you also have a podcast, right?
Yeah, correct. We have we bring on some of the top thought leaders, coaches, current athletes, former athletes in the world, quite frankly. And we have them. It's called our 40 Athletes podcast. We also have a podcast called I Am a Champion, based off of our friend Jonathan Flowers' video, where he gives a speech to a football, like a pregame speech to a high school football team. It's got like 23 million views. So we've worked with him on doing a roundtable show where we just come and say, what does it mean to be a champion in life? Like, what does that look like? So, because at the end of the day, like, you can win all the tournaments, the games, the scoreboard, but you can lose in the game of life. And we see that all the time with pro athletes, with college athletes. how many NFL guys you've seen getting arrested or you name it. They think it seems like they have everything, but then they make these crazy decisions that don't benefit them or their team.
And then how often is your podcast? Is it weekly, or how often do you do your episodes?
Yeah, we go live once a week on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And then sometimes we go twice a week. We go at least once a week, and typically on a Wednesday or Fridays when we go. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then how can people see it? Only on LinkedIn, or is it on all platforms?
Yeah, it's on my personal LinkedIn page, and it's on our 40 Athletes YouTube channel. So like number 4, letter D, like 4-dimensional athletes, and then our Facebook page. So it's on those 3 platforms, and then we are now getting them on Apple too. So all podcasts like Apple, Spotify. When we get the recordings on, we're starting to put them up now as well. From our previous episodes. We got about 85 episodes right now, roughly.
Wow.
So we're just getting we got some great guests on too, from former NFL players to great women athletes, mental performance coaches, college coaches, former college coaches, and even some high school coaches and these are just simply about how do you win the game of life. We don't talk about a whole lot of like sports skill stuff. This is all life skill stuff. The things that are going to make people successful no matter what they do.
Okay. And do you use your podcast to market your business, or what's the goal of your podcast?
We talk about, like where you can find us at 40athletes.com. And we share some like, hey, if you want to, we even do mental fitness coaching as well, where we talk about how to train your mind, get your mind to work for you as opposed to against you. So we do advertise a lot of that, but really we've tried to make the podcast about adding value, because we know if you add value, then the people get more curious, and we just try to pull them in to help them understand our message of why we're doing what we're doing. And it's, suicide is the second leading cause of death between 10 to 34-year-olds, adolescents aged 13 to 18. 1 out of every 3 adolescents will experience some sort of anxiety disorder between ages 13 to 18. So again, a proactive approach to trying to get ahead of some of these, things that could really plague Generation Z and then even Generation Alpha, which is my kids' age, so.
I love what you're doing. And the biggest thing, I think, for us is suicide, man. You got to communicate,
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing that it was hard for us to do as a kid with my dad, because he ruled the house with an iron fist. But as we got older, it was easy to talk to him, especially for me. I wasn't really, scared to talk to him about anything. I could come and talk to him about anything. My brothers and sisters is a little different. But as older that I got, I was able to tackle different subjects with him and found out that it was cool to talk with him, you know what I mean? And he surprised me. I thought it was going to be a different reaction, but actually it wasn't. So what I do with my kids is I communicate. I let them know we can talk about anything you want to talk about. There's nothing in this world that we can't not talk about. So don't be scared. And sometimes I come to them with it, and then they surprisingly, they come and they talk to me about a lot of stuff, and I'm grateful for that.
That's
I
awesome.
think too, it's important for us to be the models of what we want to see. Like if we expect our kids to share with us stuff, we gotta share our own struggles. Like I'll tell my son, like my 5-year-old son, like, hey man, in class today, my 2nd grade class, they were crazy. And I struggled today, man. Like it was tough today. He's like, really, Dad? Yeah. I was like, yeah, man, I had some challenges today, because I think, I don't know about you all, but whenever I grew up, I felt like my mom and dad were just like, they didn't do anything wrong. Like they were like, yeah. And just kind of, because I felt like, they were adults. They just had it all figured out. And but
that's what it looked like, what I'm saying?
That's what it seemed like as
from
a 3, 4, 5, 10, like, because you don't know any better, right? You just, mom and dad got it figured out. Cool. Right. And then, so I think the best thing is you can model what you want to see for your kids. Like I tell my kids, sorry if I'm like, hey man, I'm sorry for raising my voice. Like I don't want to sound like that.
Right.
And Daddy's sorry about that, man. Like, I hope you can forgive me. Like just kind of having like treating them like you would talk to an adult, but obviously they're kids. But I mean, and I feel like whenever they see like, oh wow, Daddy's human too. Okay, maybe I can talk to and then they'll open up.
That's right. You're exactly right. That gives
you
them
open the door
confidence.
because you make it relatable to them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Gives them the confidence to be able to come to you, knowing that you come to them and tell them, they're like, wow, Dad, you had a bad day like that. Like, yeah. And you talk to them about it, and they love it, man. They just want to be a part of it too. You know what I mean? They want help in any way that they can. You know what I'm saying? They might put a smile on your face and you're like, I'm glad I did said that today. That made me feel a little better. You know what I'm saying? Junior might tell you something. Junior might tell you something. You're like, wow, you know what? I'm going to use that in class.
I think we underestimate our kids, man. We underestimate how smart they are. We underestimate how much they take in. Kids are the best learners, and they are super observant. So I think we tend to underestimate the intelligence of our kids. I know I have before, but then my sons will say something, and I was like, "Dang, that was good."
Okay. Jason, at this point of your life, are you living in your purpose?
Yeah, man. I think I wake up every day with a high level of energy about what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, because for me, it goes back to like, if I don't do what I'm doing, some kid might lose their life. Somebody might be thinking about taking their life. So I wake up every morning thinking like, what can I do to maybe save one kid's life or one person's life, whether it be through a podcast, whether it be through them going through our 40 athletes program. Maybe it's a video they see or something. Maybe they read my book. I don't know what it is, but that's something that keeps me going and motivated every day, knowing the fact that there's some kid out there, some person out there that's on the brink of possibly doing something that they would regret and that would change the course of their family forever. So, and using sports to do it, which I've always loved sports, and then taking my most painful moment and just kind of merging them together, and then using that as a platform to make the world a better place.
That's fascinating, man. That's awesome. So Jason,
thanks.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. How can people find 4D athletes?
Yeah, we can go, we have 40athletes.com is our website. And then we're on all major platforms, Instagram, 40 athletes, Facebook, 40 athletes. We have a LinkedIn page as well with I'll try to make it all consistent. And me personally, I'm on the same thing, a lot of the same platforms, just trying to post positive stuff consistently, trying to help people feel good about themselves.
Great. Is there a final thought that you'd like to share with our audience?
I saw a quote here recently that, dawn always follows the dusk, right? So in the darkest moments, the light is right behind it. So sometimes whenever you feel like it's like tough, you really want to give up, you don't feel like it's like anything's working, like that's the moment when you just gotta stick with it just a little bit longer, because those are the moments like, hey, you're right there. Like it's almost like the universe challenges, like how bad you really want something. So dawn always follows the dusk. So remember, like, light always beams through like right after the darkest moments. So just hang in there, take it one step at a time, and have the faith that things will continue to get better.
No doubt. I feel the same way. Bad times don't last forever. It's just that people give up. And once you give up, that's when you lose. The sun's going to come out. It's going to come out. I mean, it might be raining right now, but just hang in there, like you said, and watch and be ready for that sun to come out. And you see it's going to be a whole new day, a whole new different day.
Absolutely, James. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that'd be my last tidbit. Yeah. Thank you so much, Jason. That's a good word, man. And thank you, James, too. Man, there's so many people out there going through tough, difficult, impossible situations right now. And I know that they'll get some value out of that. Thank you so much for being on our show. Jason, James, man, it's been a pleasure. Humbled that you had me on. Thank you all for having me as a guest today. No problem. Thank you. All right. Thank you, man. Take care. Yeah. Thank you for watching Living on Purpose podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube channel.